Welcome to Ballot Battleground Nevada. I'm your host, Ben Margiott, a reporter at KRNV News 4 in Reno. I'm passionate about making politics in this critical battleground state more digestible to the average voter and pushing past the talking points to press politicians for answers. On this show, we take deep dives into the people, ideas, and debates shaping Silver State politics. It's a crowded field of Republican candidates for U.S. Senate in Nevada. 12 people toss their hat in the ring for the chance to take on, in all likelihood, Democratic incumbent Jacky Rosen. Once the general is set, that race will be one of the most closely watched and most expensive Senate races in the country this fall, as Republicans try to flip that crucial seat and win control of the upper chamber. So who advances to face Rosen is critical. And it's why this week we'll introduce you to some of the candidates as part of our Know Your Candidates 2024 series on News 4 and Fox 11. Again, there are a dozen, and we're talking to 9 of them in total. That's far too many to squeeze into one show, so stay tuned as we continue this series next week. In fairness, we asked all candidates a series of similar questions and tried to give equal time to all. In some instances, we have edited candidates' responses to keep the time roughly equal. Among the topics, Yucca Mountain, a hot-button issue in this race, abortion, the Trump prosecutions, and much more. Today, you'll hear from 3 candidates. We're starting with the 3 that, according to the only recent primary poll, would have the best shot at upsetting the clear frontrunner. Army captain and wounded warrior Sam Brown is widely considered to be the frontrunner. He leads primary candidates by a huge margin in the limited primary polling, leads in fundraising, and has the backing of many national Republicans, including the National Republican Senatorial Committee. Brown initially booked a time slot for an interview, but canceled citing a scheduling conflict. We responded and gave his team 3 other times on a different day and never heard back. So we start with the next 3 contenders. According to that April poll, which was done by the Terrence Group, Jim Marchant, Tony Grady, and Jeff Gunter. So without further ado, let's dive right into our first interview with Jim Marchant, former Nevada Assemblyman and former candidate for Nevada Secretary of State, who these days is known for promoting conspiracy theories and denying the results of the 2020 election. Tell our viewers and listeners and our audience who you are and what kind of experience you have.
My name is Jim Marchant. I have been in Nevada since 2005, and I served in the Assembly back in 2016 election, served in the 17 session for a couple of years there, and I had the most conservative voting record according to Matt Slapp with American Conservative Union, so the people know that I'm going to vote for them. I have a conservative record you can go look at, and I'm the only candidate running in the primary that's ever served in a legislature, so experience matters. So I'm taking that with me to the U.S. Senate. I don't have to learn on the job.
Why do you believe you're the best candidate to take on, presumably, Jacky Rosen in November?
One of those reasons right there. I'm the only candidate that has served in the Assembly or in a legislature at all. I have the conservative voting record. People know how I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote for them instead of the establishment, the uniparty, the lobbyists that basically run our world right now. And so they'll have confidence that I'm going to do the same in the Senate. I have not been endorsed, or I have been endorsed by Senator Tommy Tuberville, one of the most conservative, patriot, America First senators that we have. I have not been endorsed by the uniparty senators like Senator Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Steve Daines, Mitt Romney, all of those like my opponent, Sam Brown. That's who he has picked his lane. It's going to be status quo with him, with beholding to them. Nothing's going to change. So if you like your groceries the way they are, the energy prices the way they are, they're going to stay the same if you vote for him. My other candidate is Jeff Gunter. He's a Democrat from California, primary residence in Beverly Hills, moved over here, rented a house last year, and is trying to buy a senator seat here in Nevada. So I think the people of Nevada are smarter than that, and they're not gonna vote for either one of them.
What's the most pressing issue facing Nevada, and what would you do from a federal level to fix it?
I think that the border crisis right now is one of the biggest issues. We need to go back to the policies that President Trump had in place when he was president. We need Remain in Mexico to be reestablished. I think Biden cut that out. And just enforce the policies that we have on the books. We need to just close the border. We have the resources to stop the people coming over. We just need to do it. And we need leadership to do that. President Trump demonstrated that he could do that and did it. And he just needs support in the Senate to back him up. And that's the problem we have right now. We have a uniparty, and he does not have support. When he was elected in 2016, he had a hostile Congress, even though Republicans controlled it. Mitch McConnell and the Speaker then, Paul Ryan, did not like him. And imagine what we could have done if we would have had support, or he could have done if he had had support in the Congress. And I plan to give him that support.
Would you describe yourself as pro-life, and if so, would you vote in support of a national abortion ban?
I am pro-life, and no, I probably wouldn't do the national abortion ban. I think it's in the states where it belongs, and I think the states should decide what they need to do with that issue.
One candidate in this race has recently said that Nevada was missing out on a good economic opportunity by not storing spent nuclear fuel at Yucca Mountain in southern Nevada. Do you agree with that?
That's one of my specialties. I have been working on this issue for 10 years, and I somewhat agree. So I don't think that Nevada needs to be a dump for the nuclear waste around the country. There's 121 sites that house this material right now, above ground, behind chain link fence. How secure is that? Not very. Yucca Mountain was originally designed to be a dump, for them to bring the material out here and just store it, forever. And so I came up with a plan back in 2016 when President Trump was elected. One of the first bills that he did was to reopen the licensing process of Yucca Mountain. I took the opportunity to go to the House, and I met with the energy chairmen and the Senate, and I had another proposal for them. Instead of bringing the material out here and storing it as waste, why don't we bring the material out here and reprocess it and use it and make trillions of dollars for Nevada, to the point where I believe that every citizen in Nevada could get a royalty if we do that. That also solves a problem that right now each taxpayer pays $2 million a day fine. $2 million a day we pay because the material is not out here. We could solve that problem. We could get rid of that $2 million a day fine by implementing the policy that I proposed to Congress, and that's to make it a reprocessing plant and sell the material and make tons of money for Nevada.
Will you continue to support former President Donald Trump in this election if he's convicted of felonies by a jury of his peers?
Probably yes, yeah. And I think the whole, what's going on here is a travesty. I don't think it's valid. I don't think it's what America was built on. And yes, I'll support him.
Should people that rioted at the Capitol on January 6th be pardoned?
I don't think they should be in jail at all. That was a federal psyops that happened there, I believe. And whoever did it, whether it was the FBI or any of the other agencies, I know people that were there, and it was fomented by them, not the people that were there.
What issue do you differ from your party's stance, and why?
From the Republican Party?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm probably a little more, conservative than the Republican Party. Like I said earlier, I mean, we have a uniparty right now. There are very few conservatives in the House and the Senate. I align myself mostly with them, the conservatives. And I think that, like, for example, what Mike Johnson, the Speaker, did the other day. giving all the money to Ukraine and everybody else outside of our country. We need to keep that money here. So that's one of the biggest things that I differ from my party. And believe me, I will be a disruptor when I'm in the Senate. I will call my own party out, just like I did here in Nevada. And I called my own governor out when he killed the education savings account, our school choice bill, in 2017. I'll do the same thing when I'm in the Senate.
Next, we'll hear from Tony Grady, a retired lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force.
Let's start with you. Tell our listeners and viewers about you and your experience.
So to understand who Tony Grady is, you need to understand my parents. They were both born poor in the Jim Crow South. My dad ended up becoming a vocational ed professor, taught some historically black colleges, and got tapped to help developing nations develop their vocational colleges. So that enabled me to live in Lagos, Nigeria, in Africa, and then I graduated from high school in Bangkok, Thailand. The reason that's important is people need to know that as just a very young man, I got to live in the United States and outside the United States. At that time, I was hailing from Philadelphia. So I've been living diplomacy my entire life. So I got to see communism, socialism, and I knew that we didn't need that in the United States, maybe patriotic. And I went to the Air Force Academy, became a pilot, became a test pilot, commanded the B-2 Stealth Bomber Test Squadron, $24 billion program, very dangerous being a test pilot. And one of the high points of my career is it was delivered safe and successful. Also worked in the Pentagon. I was responsible for the bomber portion of the president's military budget. So I've actually helped to write language that have gone into bills like the appropriations bill. So I understand how our appropriations process works. After 20 years in the Air Force, I flew for FedEx for 20 years. And during that time period, I started a company, and it was a biotech company. But probably, Ben, the most important thing I want your audience to know about me is I've been married to the same woman for 40 years. Now, Ben, you're pretty young. Are you a parent?
I am, yeah.
You're a parent. So I need to ask you this. Do children listen? No, they don't listen.
Yeah, not always.
So I want you to know that mine don't either. I told you I went to the Air Force Academy. Well, my oldest went to Annapolis, the Naval Academy, and the baby went to West Point. He went to the Army because they don't listen. But the reality is I wanted to bring that up because my children are successful, and we need to elect leaders that want all American children to be successful. So I'm running for U.S. Senate because I'm the most qualified candidate to run for the U.S. Senate. I understand diplomacy, military strategy, and the economic instruments of power. There isn't a Republican candidate that understands that broad spectrum. And I want to use that skill set to help our country get back on track by sealing the border, because we need to get that under control. Without a border, you don't have a country. I want our energy prices to go down, so then inflation will go down, so that Nevadans' dollar will go a lot further. And I want the United States to get back to the proper place in the world stage, because when we lead instead of react, like the Biden administration rubber stamped by Jacky Rosen right now, their policies, they are causing a lot more aggression in the world. So when we lead, there's more peace in the world. So that's what I'm about. That's why I'm running for U.S. Senate.
What's the most pressing issue facing Nevada right now, and what would you do to solve it from the federal level?
So from the federal level, I think the most pressing is the border. We have people coming into our country illegally, and that's negatively impacting us. In my church, if you remember Mr. Guzman, who murdered a couple in Minden, in my church, there's a family that lived on the street with them. So we have people coming into our country illegally that are causing more increase in crime and other things that are happening that are bad. So that's number one. At the federal level, I would hold the executive responsible for following Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution to prevent the states from being invaded. And that's what's happening right now. We're being invaded by people coming from all over the world in terms of open borders. So we would do that, and I would advocate for a reinstitution of Title 42. We need to, from the federal level, carry out the laws that are on the books. Right now, to stop this problem initially, we don't need any new legislation. That's the most important problem right now.
Are you pro-life or pro-choice, and would you vote to support a national abortion ban?
So I'm unashamedly pro-life. My grandmother, my mother's mother, didn't want her. I'm very glad that she chose to have her. So I think in the United States that we need to do things to further life, because in our Declaration of Independence, life is the first right that we view that people had. It was at one time when the Democrats believed that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare, but that's not what we have today. We want unrestricted, or not we want, but the Democrats are advocating unrestricted abortion. But Nevadans have spoken. Nevadans, back in 1990, passed a ballot referendum that said that 6 months is what they're comfortable with abortion. I'm running to be the United States Senator, so I will do what Nevadans have said that they're comfortable with. So that's where I stand.
Do I take that to mean you would not support a national abortion ban? Obviously, that would supersede Nevada's law.
Well, I think that the abortion issue is where it belongs. The discussion is in the states, and I think each state has to determine which way that they're going to go. And I am a constitutional originalist, small government person, so I don't think that the federal government should be dictating to the states. I can't comment on what I would do with any legislation right now because you have to see what's in the legislation. So, that's a very big theoretical question that you can't answer that right now. It depends what's in legislation to determine whether I'd support it or not.
One of the candidates in this race, as recently as 2022, said that Nevada was missing out on a good economic opportunity by not storing spent nuclear fuel at Yucca Mountain in southern Nevada. Do you agree with that?
So science has good reasons for expanding, solving our energy problems with nuclear energy. And I uphold the science. I believe in the science. However, people need to understand that in Nevada, the Nevadans have spoken in terms of nuclear waste coming into the state. And right now, Nevadans are against it. So as their senator, I would be supporting whatever I can do to protect Nevadans. And Nevadans do not want Yucca Mountain being used as a repository at this time. So until Nevadans change their opinion, I'm going to always work to protect the people of Nevada.
Have you endorsed former President Donald Trump, and will you continue to support him if he is convicted of felonies?
My campaign endorsed Donald Trump in January. So we believe that Donald Trump will be the nominee. In terms of what's going on politically right now is one of the reasons that I'm running. President Biden, backed up by Jacky Rosen, is using lawfare and interfering with an election. There are many charges that have been brought against President Trump, which are unfounded. That's working its way through the courts right now. But it's really interesting how they waited till now. There were years and years that they could have prosecuted him, and they didn't, and they waited till now. So obviously, this is mere political lawfare and interference in an election process. And so, if President Trump becomes the nominee out of the Republican convention, I will support the nominee out of the Republican convention.
Even if he's convicted by a jury of his peers?
I will support the nominee out of the convention.
And finally this week, Jeff Gunter, a dermatologist who served as former President Donald Trump's U.S. ambassador to Iceland from 2019 to 2021.
First off, thank you for having me. I think a free press and the ability to get information out to the voters is so important, especially in today's world. I'm Jeff Gunter. I'm a skin cancer specialist, dermatologist who's been practicing here in Nevada for almost 28 years. I also was honored to represent all your viewers as their U.S. ambassador in Iceland. President Trump sent me to Iceland to represent America, where I was there for a little bit under 2 years, and it was a tremendous honor. I have great kids, great family, and just blessed like so many of us to be here in Nevada and working very hard to keep Nevada free.
Why do you believe you're the best candidate to take on Jacky Rosen in November?
First and foremost, I am by far the most qualified. As the former U.S. ambassador to Iceland, I've met with prime ministers. I've met with foreign ministers. I've worked on drug trafficking. I've worked on money laundering. I have extensive experience with the TSA and all the other government organizations. I've worked on the border. So having spent that time and gaining that experience is absolutely irreplaceable. And it enables me to advocate on behalf of Nevada in Washington, D.C. Number two, I'm not owned by the deep state. I'm not owned by Mitch McConnell. I'm not owned by anyone like that. I have one principal party in mind to represent, and that's the voters of Nevada. Number three, I have extensive experience with foreign policy. I've been a member of what's called the RJC, the Republican Jewish Coalition, for nearly 17 years. I am the only one who could go head to head with Jacky Rosen. Why? I have tremendous experience, foreign policy experience, that none of my competitors have. I have the ability to communicate with people on various issues that none of my competitors have. And I am 110% pro-Donald Trump. And the reality is President Trump is polling, deservingly so, tremendously well here in Nevada. And we need candidates that are aligned with President Trump and who are willing to say, I'm 110% for President Trump. Because we love those days when we had 1% inflation, 3.5% unemployment, when we had no endless wars going on around the world, when we could see what happened with Afghanistan and the just terrible withdrawal and the brave Americans that perished unnecessarily there. And then what did that do? That lit the world on fire. We see what's happening in Ukraine. We see what's happening in the Middle East. And we need someone who's for those America First policies to stop that stuff, to stop us from taking our money abroad and spending it on other people's borders when our border is wide open, needs to be shut and closed down.
What's the most pressing issue facing Nevada right now? And if you were elected to the U.S. Senate, what would you do to solve it from a federal level?
That is a great question. And it's really, I have top three, okay? The top three are close the border, and you guys guessed it, close the border. If you do not have a border, we do not have a country. If we don't have a border and we see it, we see crime in the streets, we see fentanyl killing our kids, and we also can see that terrorist organizations are setting up cells and coming in to our country and our state unabated. They don't need a Trojan horse anymore. They can just come in right across our border.
On the issue of abortion, I mean, do you describe yourself as a pro-life? And then if so, would you support a national abortion ban?
I am pro-life. There's no doubt about it. But the reality is we don't want people in New York and other states telling us here in Nevada how to live our lives. I couldn't have been more proud and more thankful for the reversal of Roe v. Wade. So I would not be for a national referendum on that. I believe that we in Nevada have to define and create our own future. And that's what we've done.
One of the candidates in this race recently said that Nevada was missing out on a good economic opportunity by not storing spent nuclear fuel at Yucca Mountain. Do you agree with that?
I think that's shameful. It's terrible. Sam Brown said it. I will call him out on it. And again, it shows that you're being owned by the DC elites. This is the antithesis. This is completely opposite of Donald Trump's position. Donald Trump is against Yucca Mountain. I'm against Yucca Mountain. I stand with Donald Trump. Look it, I'm a physician. I'm a dermatologist. What do? I treat cancer caused by radiation, ultraviolet radiation. And remember, the same people that are telling us that Yucca Mountain is safe are the same people that told us the vaccine was safe, are the same people that told us that masks work to stop COVID and influenza, and they are the same people that are telling us that our southern border is secure.
Do you believe Joe Biden is the legitimate, fairly elected president?
I believe that Joe Biden is not cognitively there. That's what I believe right now.
Is he the legitimately elected president?
You know, it depends. I mean, there's a lot of words to dissect in there. I believe that there's tremendous faults and mistakes and insufficiencies throughout our 2020 election. I know that I went to bed seeing Donald Trump way ahead, and then I heard about broken toilets in different states. I saw suitcases of ballots. I saw all sorts of stuff going on there. So the reality is we can focus on 2020 or we can focus on 2024. Our country is a disaster right now under Joe Biden, and we need to take it back. We need to ballot harvest. We need to play the game that the Democrats are playing. But we most importantly are standing on the cliff right now of losing America, and we need to take it back.
Will you continue to support him if he's convicted of felonies by a jury of his peers in New York?
Let me be incredibly clear, okay? And I was his U.S. ambassador. I was part of his administration. We watched the bogus impeachments. Those impeachments were illegitimate. They were bogus. They were targeting him. And then we saw the silly indictments, the bogus indictments of Donald Trump, completely politicized. And now we watch this ridiculous trial, going on in New York City now, which is just purely political election interference.
And so
the
you
American
think
public
it's
know that, and I support Donald Trump no matter what, because all of these things that are going on are bogus. They're election interference, and darn right, Ambassador Dr. Jeff Gunter supports Donald Trump 110%, regardless of this rigged outcome that they're trying to do in New York or anywhere else. I certainly understand about documents as well as secure and classified documents. That's all bogus as well. As a U.S. ambassador, we were very responsible for things. So look at Jeff Gunter's 110% pro Donald Trump.
But you say
your viewers have to see that and know that.
You say election interference. Is it not election interference to pay substantial sums of money to people to pay off people that you have, relationships and affairs with in order to cover that information up from the
I don't really understand what you're alluding to. I can just 100% tell you that they are using statutes that date back to the 1800s. They are, at the very least, assuming there's any legitimacy to this prosecution of Donald Trump, this comes from a statute like in the 1800s. We've seen the donations that the judge overseeing this trial has made. We see that the employment of various individuals on there are connected to the Biden administration. But you guys have to understand, your viewers have to understand, this is bad for America. This is absolutely bad for our great democracy when you have deliberate and clear targeting. Look, they put a gag order on the greatest president we've ever had since Abraham Lincoln. Meanwhile, everyone else and, Joe Biden is out there talking away. But you have to understand, this is being rejected here in Nevada. And that's why Donald Trump is so high in the polls right now. And when I'm out on the campaign trail, everyone sees it. They go, this is just wrong. This is not the way a battle-born state views things. Let's settle it at the ballot. Let's settle it at the ballot box. Let's not settle it in some courtroom in New York City.
If you're 110% pro-Trump, do you agree with him then that people who committed violent acts on January 6th should be pardoned?
Well, again, we can get right into it. I believe that the people of January 6th need to have a complete review of what happened there. We've all seen what happens. What about the people, my response to you is, what about the people who burned down cities in the 2020 election? These are people that are running free and clear throughout throughout our country. We watched Portland burn. We watched Minneapolis burn. And your viewers know and see when CNN or other reporting agencies stand there and go, oh, well, this is a what do they call it? A nonviolent protest.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, there's flames and everything going out between.
Let's go back to January 6th. Should violent offenders who committed violent acts on January 6th be pardoned? I think everything needs to be looked at a case-by-case basis. And they have to have real justice and they have to have real due process. And right now, I view the majority of those people who are in jail right now as political prisoners. And it's terrible. They got railroaded, and my heart goes out to them. And this is not what America is about. This is not what America is about. And the voters of Nevada see it. They get it. That's why I'm doing so well and surging in the polls, because we in Nevada are battle-born. We love our freedom. And we know when we see things that are illegitimate. And the reality is this is government gangsters, election interference, going after President Trump. They came after me when I was in Iceland. And we have to be strong and we have to be tough. And that's why I'm going to beat Jacky Rosen.
If you made it to the end of this episode, we really appreciate it. If you have guest ideas, episode ideas, questions, comments, compliments, concerns, anything at all, feel free to shoot us an email to bjmargiott, Margiott, at sbgtv.com and put Ballot Battleground Nevada in the subject line. And if you have a minute, we'd really appreciate it if you left a rating and a review. That helps the podcast show up higher in searches so more people can discover the show and listen. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week.